Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
He's in the building!
Drink the moment. Drink it.
I said empty your mind.
Coquettish and coy. Ow. Ow.
What?
And there's people that are dying.
The wickedly talented.
More than great. It was historic.
Crack is
What?
Oh, good for you.
I have to apologize.
One of the hottest.
Welcome back to The Reheat, a podcast that re-examines the hottest celebrity news and scandals of yesteryear and asks, how would we react to the same events if they'd transpired today?
I'm your co-host, Sarah Sahagian.
And I'm Sadaf Hassan, and this week, brace yourselves, we're going deep on J.K. Rowling. You know what I'm talking about. Now, in the late 90s and early O's, she was kind of a rags to riches fairy tale, a single mom on welfare, writing a book in cafes. Suddenly, she's the most successful author on the planet. The Harry Potter series didn't just change publishing, it reshaped childhoods, my childhood. It launched a cinematic empire, created a fandom that felt sacred. But in the years since, this woman behind the Wizard has become something else entirely, a cautionary tale of how power and platform can curdle into something toxic. Today we're unpacking the rise and the fall of J.K. Rowling, not just as an author, but as a cultural figure. Now, I remember when I was younger, Sarah, my mom used to very sweetly, she would line up at the midnight releases to get me and my sister a copy. It was the sweetest thing. It was like her big gift of the year for us. And I remember actually my grade 4 teacher unveiling the very first novel to me. It was a very dramatic unveiling. I remember she was like, you've read all the books in the classroom. I don't know what else to give you. And then she pulled her chair back where she had like this little locked cabinet and there were a bunch of copies of The Philosopher's Stone. Very dramatic to me as a child. Probably didn't mean much to her at the time. And she was like, I want to give you this. This is going to be so good to you and good for you. And it was. The whole series has been so meaningful to me my whole life, especially when I was younger as a reader and a writer. But it's funny because now, you know, obviously there's this J.K. Rowling of it all, but also it's kind of become like a laughing point for people of millennials. So, Sarah, I want to ask you, what is your relationship with Harry Potter over the years?
Okay, so this is how weird I was as a child. I was very forward thinking. I don't love fantasy as a genre. It's not my favorite genre. I'm happy for people who like it. I appreciate what it's doing. I don't love it. So when the books came out, I literally, as a little girl, was like, you know, I'm probably going to have to read these to my kids one day. And I don't think I'm going to like them enough to read them twice. So I'm just not going to read them now. I'll wait until I have children. This is a real thing, a decision I made as a child. So my sister read them. And you know what? I ended up reading them and I ended up being familiar with them. But that was, I resisted it for a really long time until you basically just couldn't opt out of them anymore if you wanted to be culturally literate, because I was just like, I'm not going to like them enough to read them to my child one day. And to be fair, I don't think I do. And I'm going to have to read them to my daughter. So I was right at the time.
Listen, I insist, and we'll get back to this in a bit, but they are still such good books. I promise you, there will be a part of you that will not totally hate them, I hope. But you know what? I've never really been a fantasy person aside from this series. I don't know what it is for me. Clearly, like, Harry Potter got a hold on a lot of us, but yeah. Alas, we will get into that a little bit more. Now, before she became a household name, J.K. Rowling was just Joanne, a single mom in Edinburgh struggling with depression and living on state benefits. She spent her free moments writing a story about this boy wizard on a train ride from Manchester to London. I remember this so well. I was obsessed with her story. She would write the book on notes, on napkins, and she would piece together what the story would become, which of course was eventually Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. By the time she finished the manuscript, she'd been rejected by a dozen publishers. They told her story was too long, too strange, too risky for the children's market, which of course is so wild now. But one, at the time, small London publisher, Bloomsbury, took a chance, allegedly thanks to the 8-year-old daughter of an executive who read the first chapter and insisted on reading more. Bloomsbury, of course, is a massive publisher now, and that's largely in part thanks to Harry Potter. Now, that first book was released in 1997 2007 with an initial print run of just 500 copies. It didn't stay obscure for long, obviously. Word of mouth spread very quickly. Kids devoured the story of the boy who lived. I ate it right up. My sister did, all of our friends did. We were obsessed. Parents bought extra copies so they could read along. And when Scholastic won the U.S. publishing rights for a record $105,000, J.K. Rowling's name officially entered the literary big leagues. The books that followed each outsold the last. Midnight release parties became a phenomenon. Bookstores filled with kids in robes and round glasses, staying up past bedtime just to get their hands on the next chapter in Harry's story. If you were not around at that time, so I'm talking to some of you really young Gen Zers, like, phenomenon barely captures it, right, Sarah? Like, people were dressed up as Harry, as her gear for Halloween. Like, this was intense. Now, by the time the final book, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, dropped in 2007, J.K. Rowling had achieved something unheard of, a children's fantasy series that captivated the entire world, truly, with over 500 million copies sold across 80 languages. And I've not even gotten into the movies yet. Beginning in 2001, the film adaptations turned her universe into a cinematic empire. Actors like Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint became stars, and the franchise raked in literally billions of dollars. But Harry Potter wasn't just about profits, believe it or not. It created a community. For millennials, Hogwarts was more than fiction. It was a safe haven. The books were coded with messages about courage, friendship, found family, and resistance to authoritarianism. Fans who felt out of place in the real world often saw themselves in the margins of these books. For many queer and trans readers in particular, the book spoke to something deeper, the sense of being different, hidden. It felt like the author understood. Emphasis on felt. It's what came next, all the more painful. But before we get there, Sarah, I want to ask, what do you make of J.K. Rowling's stratospheric rise? Something like this is still so rare.
So I think it's very sweet how our generation got so excited about books, right? And now we only see video games launch like this at midnight, right? So I think it's the last time we had monoculture with a book, right? And it's funny, there was a lot of literary monoculture. I'm not trying to say that the Da Vinci Code was as good a book, but it also felt like literary monoculture because all the adults read it on planes, right? If you went to an airport, everyone was reading that. So I think it was the last time where literature, regardless of quality, because I mean, who cares? Like, where people were just reading, right? Where reading was a huge part of our culture that was mainstream and everyone was doing it. And we still have reading. Book talk is huge, but it's kind of niche and it's female dominated. Like, you know, men don't really read anymore if you look at the statistics.
Yeah.
So it does feel quaint and beautiful, and her story obviously inspired so many people. And it is still objectively an inspirational story, regardless of what we think of J.K. Rowling now and what she's done now that she is one of the most privileged people on the planet. Her initial origin story does inspire you and makes you think, like, just keep trying, just keep pitching your book, just keep writing it, write it on a napkin if you have to. Mm-hmm. It is a really compelling narrative that is actually, I think, more moving than Harry Potter. I think it's more original. I let her
read the book.
The books. I just didn't at the time.
Didn't. Oh, I'm
no,
so
I
sorry.
did. Eventually, I did because you had to be culturally literate, right? And when
That's
you had to, right? So I just was like, okay, well, I have to. I'm not super looking forward to reading them a second time because
I'm so sorry.
Well, because I read them and then I saw all the movies and I don't love the story enough to consume as much Harry Potter pop culture as I think I'm going to have to. You know, but it's fine. I like the stories. I think the earlier books are better because by the end, this is my theory, she became so big, I think she resisted editing. And so they're a bit bloated. I think earlier, they're great. They're lovely children's books. And later, I find them the stories are still good, but I find the process of reading it to be a bit of a slog. Because I think even great writers need editors. And when writers get too big to be edited, I think bad things happen.
That's actually really interesting. So I typically would totally agree with you. But of course, I'm a deeply biased, obsessed fan from when I was young. However, I have to say, it's been many years since I read the books. I read them twice through, but I was pretty damn young both times. Mm-hmm. I'm tempted to do a reread of them all now. And I wonder if I'd feel the same way as you. Because at the time, I remember thinking, wow, this is a tome, but I love every page and I could read so much more. God, it really was like a thing that sucked us all in, huh? Like, looking back at it now, it does kind of almost seem like mania, essentially, coming from from your perspective too. But yeah, I agree with you about J.K. Rowling. It's just so unheard of, and it does break my heart so much. I love what you said about, God, we were such readers at that time. The fact that a book could do that to us is so beautiful. I really wish we could have that now. Now, what is the equivalent? Colleen Hoover? Sorry, Colleen, but yikes.
There is no equivalent. I mean, the Hunger Games is, I think, as close as we got.
Came close.
I mean, I don't even know how close it came. Not really that close. And also, I don't know how many people will be nostalgic for the Hunger Games because it's such an upsetting story. Like, you're not going to have a Hunger Games theme park, right? That's not going to happen. As much as I think Lionsgate would like Disney to acquire them because they want to make it a theme park, that's not going to happen.
I feel like they'd find a way. Like, you go through the districts, but God, I don't know, could you? And you hit the most poor district, it'd be horrific. Never mind, redacted.
It's a story about children getting killed and children go to Disney World. Like, you can't, the idea of that's just...
No, you're right. It's brutal. Okay, back to J.K. Rowling. Now, for most of the O's, her public persona was tightly controlled. Truly, you would have never guessed at that time the way things were going to go. She gave polished interviews. She supported quite a number of charities. She would share little nuggets about the books here and there. You know, you would live for if J.K. Rowling was going to do an appearance or say something about the books. It was a whole thing. Fans loved when she'd tweet out fun facts, like which characters were secretly dating and it wasn't in the text, or what their patronesses might be. Obviously, I went crazy for this shit. But even then, there were signs that she sometimes maybe struggled with critique. This is up for debate, but in 2007 when she announced that Dumbledore was gay, the response was mixed because it was very subtle subtext, if at all. Some fans celebrated the representation even if it never actually appeared on the page. Others asked why she hadn't just written it in because why wouldn't you? And at the time, I feel like when people would really push on this, she seemed to get a little bit agitated. Like, okay, this is what I'm telling you is the truth. If it's not in there, what I say goes. But, you still couldn't have guessed, I think, the way things were going to go. Because if we cut to the mid-2010s, her Twitter presence alone, oh my lord, became truly combative, still is to this day. She started liking and retweeting posts from accounts that were tied to anti-trans rhetoric. Some followers brushed it off, thinking maybe it was accidental, maybe she didn't know, but then it started happening non-stop. In 2018, she liked a tweet calling trans women, quote, men in dresses. In 2019, she tweeted in support of Maya Forstater, a British researcher who lost her job after tweeting that trans women aren't women. Rowling's tweet, which read, quote, dress however you please, call yourself whatever you like, but force women out of their jobs for stating that sex is real. That tweet set off so many alarms in the fandom. I actually remember so much of this so well because it was so horrific. Clearly, it wasn't just some accidental slip, right? She was making a very hardcore political stance. Still, some people were holding up that she didn't mean it, but I think it was pretty damn clear that this is the hill she shockingly decided to die on. Mind you, at this point, she is like a full-blown multi-millionaire. It's insane. Now, in June 2020, because this has been ongoing, it hasn't stopped. She has not let up. In June 2020, she published what would become known as her TERF Manifesto, a lengthy essay defending her views on sex and gender. She framed her position as concern for women's rights, free speech, and child safety. But underneath that polish was a message that invalidated trans identities outright. Since then, she's been an intensely staunch naysayer. Now, for me, the toughest part of all of this is how she wrote this beautiful, beautiful series. She produced these movies. She's behind this massive empire that's expressly about how it's okay to be different. How do we reconcile this, Sarah? Like, was this all an act, or is it just the money and the fame got to her head? Is she so in this bubble that she just doesn't see it? What do you think?
Okay, so I know that these series means a lot to a lot of people, and it means a lot to a lot of my friends, not just you, to a lot of other friends I have. I was always skeptical about the whole message of inclusion because I don't find the books particularly inclusive, right?
Okay.
All of the main characters are white.
That's true.
And no one is really queer. really.
No.
I mean, and J.K. Rowling needs to understand the death of the author. Once the text is done and you've written it and you had full control, it's done. You can't just say, oh, I meant for him to be gay. I'm sorry. She had so much power by the end. She could have mentioned it in the final books somewhere, right? Somewhere. So I actually never really found them to be super inclusive. And also at the end of the day, to me, it was a really traditional story where this young white boy who is straight saves the world. To me,
it is.
I actually felt like it was very conventional. I didn't feel seen by the story. Like when I read the story, I was like, I don't feel seen by this. I also thought it was weird that Hermione liked Ron. Like I was like, I don't think that's accurate.
No,
I didn't feel like she wrote women very well, despite being a woman. I didn't see anything in this story that was particularly inclusive or super feminist or progressive in a way I wanted to see it. So that was one thing I didn't like about the stories, and was like, okay, it's fine, but it doesn't really speak to me. Like I just didn't find them super subversive. There was nothing. And also, I mean, at the time I was like a Jane Austen nerd. Like those were my stories that I read again and again. And I also loved, Charlotte Bronte. So, I mean, I just gravitated towards, also literature from England, but a different time.
Yes,
and those are not super inclusive stories either. Having said that, I feel like she wrote stories that were so lovely and were loved by so many children that a lot of people projected what they wanted onto her, right? And onto the stories.
Yeah.
And I think there was never a lot of there. And I don't blame anyone who read this as a child because we were children, right? But I was a slightly older child for Harry Potter because I'm a bit older than you. So by the time I also resisted it for a few years. So by the time I read them as a teenager, I was kind of like, what? I don't get it. Why does everyone like these stories?
Well, listen, I mean, this is why we do this show, because I love getting this alternate perspective. You are so right on. When I look back at it, it's wild because, as you said, they're all white. We had Cho Chang, who was the one Asian character.
Yes.
She was very stereotypical Asian.
Exactly.
And then we had the two Patel sisters who, God, I mean, their names were even Patel. They were also very offensively stereotypical. I won't say very offensively, but they were very stereotypical. There wasn't any there, to use your phrase. No. They were very bare bones characters, and I felt like they were kind of window dressing. I remember being so excited just that Harry had, for a bit, this Asian girlfriend, because I was so new to it. I was so young. I mean, 1997, I would have been 7 years old. So that's how young I was. Like it was before I was even a preteen, right? So for me at that age, and I guess for a lot of young millennial readers, as you said, it was so captivating because we were so young. We didn't know what it was missing yet. And so to even have Cho, to even have the two Patel sisters was massive. And I remember I had fantasies of like maybe getting to play one of the Patel sisters in the movies, which is ludicrous. Like it was that big representation at the time. Cut to now, you're absolutely right. The world we're living in at this point, if this series came out now, I think it would be heavily criticized for not having those things, not at a bigger level. God, it's so true. Isn't that incredible? And it's kind of wild that there wasn't a key gay character. It's really insane. And I agree that I felt like I couldn't really trust her on this idea that Dumbledore was gay the whole time, and you'd have to go digging for the subtext. She seems to kind of maybe flesh it out a little in one of the Fantastic Beasts movies, but even then, that's really a stretch. And who is that for? That's really basic fan service, So I think you're right. I think a lot of us projected what we wanted, and she was very smart at fanning the right flames, right? And making us feel like, yes, you're right. That is exactly what you're getting. Like the thing that you want, that is what I meant. But obviously that's not quite what was happening. And you are absolutely right. It's a very typical hero's journey. So very easy to project upon. But my God, it's tough because again, we were so young, and in the 90s, there really wasn't much, right? But you make a very good point, Sarah. I'm scared to do my reread. I gotta do a reread, and I'm gonna come back to you with a whole new take, I'm sure.
Also, if you read her mystery novels, there's a lot of racism in them. So that's made me...
So let's touch on that, because she does have, which she writes under a pseudonym, Robert Galbraith. I only read one of them. I haven't kept up with them, so I didn't know that, really.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say... Yeah, there's racist representations. And anyway, like a lot of people in the mystery community, and I really like mystery novels, have discussed this. And I think mystery novels are a fun genre, and they're also really good for social commentary, and that's really what they're supposed to be. They're just sort of an exciting way to do social commentary. And I don't know, I'm not super impressed by her as a mystery novelist. I also didn't like A Casual Vacancy. I don't think it knew what it was trying to say. Anyway, I've just never been impressed with her as writer. I think her stories in Harry Potter were excellent. I think she imagined an amazing world. I think she's clearly very imaginative. I just feel like maybe, and this is people are gonna hate me for this, but like, honestly, I feel like the type of writer she is, she'd be better maybe as like a showrunner, like to create a show and then have other people in the room writing with her, right? Like if she created Harry Potter and then she could hire people who could help her do representations of queer characters or help her write the Patel sisters so that they didn't feel false, right? Like I actually feel like that's maybe something that this story might have felt, in my opinion, a little bit more inclusive if she had done that. But I mean, okay, she wrote it as a novel. It's an incredibly beautiful world. The themes are great.
Yeah.
But since she's gotten too big to edit, I've never been impressed with the way she tells stories.
That's fair. That's fair. You know what? I liked Casual Vacancy. I didn't love it. And it didn't have me running to read her other books. I still haven't gotten to them. And I still, after all of that, I do think she's a very good children's writer. I think maybe that's the thing. Maybe she should stay there. I know my sister loves all of those. So I'm sure, of course, like this is just two people's opinions. I know a lot of you might love them. But I do think I have to disagree a little, Sarah. I think she wrote those books so gorgeously. I thought the writing was so beautiful. Like even now when I do from time to time, I'll pick out like a little bit just to look back. I still think the writing was lovely and it was really funny. It was really, really
She's funny. I agree.
She's very funny. And I feel like that kind of wit is not the most common thing in fantasy novels for that age group. That's from true. That time. Again, I digress. Okay, this feels like a really good time to take a break before we get into more of the nitty gritty of it all. We'll be right back. And we're back. Now, the backlash was swift. It was unprecedented for a writer of this woman's stature. Of course, actors from the Harry Potter films distanced themselves almost immediately. Daniel Radcliffe, my little king, this man is phenomenal. Like, if we got anything great out of this whole franchise, it's him. He published a very moving statement through the Trevor Project in 2020 that I actually still remember very well because I cried when I read it because I remember a lot of fans were waiting for someone to say something that could dispel all of this and make it okay. Not to sound corny, but people were very upset. And he kind of released the perfect statement. I'm just going to quote a little bit. He said, "Transgender women are women. Any statement to the contrary erases the identity and dignity of transgender people and goes against all advice given by professional healthcare associations who have far more expertise on this subject matter than either Joe or I." For the record, he'd worked with Trevor Project at that time for 12 years, by the way, so he really gave a shit. And in all the statements he said since, he said some really beautiful things and a lot about how it's okay to love this piece of work that meant so much to you at this certain point in your life, and you can absolutely take this woman out of it, and that's okay because it shaped his life too. But he's no longer in contact with her. He's not associated with any of this stuff anymore. As for the other people who were involved with the movies, Eddie Redmayne, star of Fantastic Beasts, he did speak out kind of softly. Like I felt like Emma Watson and Rupert Grint. He also said the backlash that J.K. Rowling was facing was very wrong. I felt like they were kind of trying to play both sides to not piss off this woman, but it's like, what does it matter at this point? Like, are you planning on returning to the franchise? You guys are all millionaires. You don't need this anymore. I didn't really get that. Anyway, fan sites, which were a very, very big thing through the run of Harry Potter, to the point where I'm going to reveal something. Me and my sister had a Harry Potter fan site. Okay.
Really? What was it called?
Oh, yeah, Sarah. It was called Obsessed. Not very creative. Not at all creative, but it was very hard. I remember trying to find a name that had not been taken because there were so many. This was like our first foray into the internet where we got to experience what it's like to be obsessed with something online. So it was really fun being a part of these communities. And I remember these two particular ones very well, the Leaky Cauldron and MuggleNet. If you're one of those fans, you'll know them. They actually issued a joint statement at this time cutting ties with J.K. Rowling, which is massive. And I really feel for those communities because they really saw J.K. Rowling as like their god, like she was everything. So to be able to do that, I think is very powerful. Now, TikTok and Tumblr was huge at the time, lit up with queer fans posting videos titled things like "Breaking Up with J.K. Rowling" and "How Harry Potter Raised Me," despite its creator. And still, Still, J.K. Rowling has refused to back down. In fact, she's doubled, she's tripled, she's quadrupled down. She spent most of 2021 and 2022 tweeting or replying to posts that mocked or misgendered trans people. She sarcastically referred to trans-inclusive language, like people who menstruate, as Orwellian. She celebrated the closure of Scottish gender reform legislation. She described herself as, quote, gender critical and accused critics of, quote, silencing her, despite having, by the way, one of the most amplified voices in modern literary history. Now, in 2024, seemingly in response to Daniel Radcliffe, she tweeted, quote, celebs who cozied up to a movement intent on eroding women's hard-won rights and who use their platforms to cheer on the transitioning of minors can save their apologies for traumatized detransitioners and vulnerable women reliant on single-sex spaces. God, it's such relentless ugliness. Like, I don't know. It's really hard. Just reading all of that through is tough. Like, she's even taking aim at people detransitioning. Every element, she's finding a way to have a dig. Now, this goes back to a point that you made earlier, Sarah, but now books don't have as much of a splash. But of course, there was a video game of Harry Potter. There's been a few. So when the video game Hogwarts Legacy was released in 2023, the backlash reignited. Some fans boycotted it. Others debated whether buying it meant complicity. Basically, we continue in this ongoing war over her views. And it seems to be this massive battle over trans rights, free expression, and how we hold powerful figures accountable, which is, of course, something we talk about so much on the Reheat. So, Sarah, I'm going to hit you with the big question, the one that we've talked about so many times on this show. Can you separate the art from the artist?
Yeah. I mean, at this point, it is in many ways separated from her because it became bigger than she was. And she's always tried to control it and reclaim it. But, I mean, people had Harry Potter tattoos. They wrote fan fiction. There's a theme park that she's not, I mean, she had influence over it, but she doesn't run on a daily basis, right? Like, I have been to the wizarding world of Harry Potter, right? Like, you know, there are fans interacting with it, making it their own. It's a universe, kind of like the Marvel universe, right? Like, no one creator can control the Marvel universe. It's too big. And so I do think if you still like Harry Potter, I'm not judging you and I understand it. It brought a lot of comfort for a lot of people. If you love fantasy, I think at the end of the day, I just don't like fantasy novels. I think that's was my issue.
Sure, that's fair.
And that's why I didn't like it, right? Like it was never going to be for me. I just don't like it. And it's, you know, I was more of a historical fiction person. Like at this age, you know, the Philippa Gregory novels were very big in my youth for me.
Good for you, man.
You know, I loved the Jane Austen stuff. And I mean, I even read Mark Twain, although Mark Twain's not great. I do not recommend
God, that's incredible. Sarah, at this time I was reading like Roald Dahl. Like this is the world that was my era.
I think one of my issues was my teachers, for whatever reason, really looked down on the Harry Potter books when I was in middle school. They felt that they didn't have enough literary merit. They didn't think they were super well written. So they would give us these summer reading lists, and obviously Harry Potter was excluded. So my father encouraged me just to read the books on the reading list that my teacher had selected for me. And they were books I liked. So I just read those. And you know what? I discovered a lot of amazing writers. I mean, like Julia Alvarez, who wrote In the Time of the Butterflies and How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents and, books like that. A lot of, I read a lot of books about queer worlds and, a lot of amazing novels. I just am not a fantasy person. But I think that if you are a fantasy person, and if Harry Potter is the book that made you fall in love with fantasy or just fall in love with reading in general, I would never say that you have to give that up completely. I do think one thing that's hard is if you buy these books for a kid today, or if you see one of the movies or you buy the video game, she gets a cut. So it's really hard to be a fan and not be giving her an even bigger platform. But listen, she's already so rich and has so much of a platform at this point that you're not making it that much worse, right? Like it's not like by boycotting her books, you're making her poorer, really. She's so rich, it doesn't matter. So I feel like just do what you need to do to be happy. If you're a fan of these books, no judgment, consume them. That doesn't mean that you're supporting her. As far as I'm concerned. I don't know. What do you think about this?
I'm even a little more positive, although I love what you did say. I think that the point that you made that it's bigger than her is beautiful. That's so lovely. And that's, by the way, an interesting, ironic testament to what she created. I'm going to be even more positive. And again, I am one of those millennials who got sucked into all this, but I don't regret any of that. If I could go back, I would do it again because those books really did change so much for me. They made me the writer that I am now, and I stand by that. I think they're incredibly well written. I think she's a good writer. I really do, and I think they were wonderful. I would read them now. I want to do a reread. If I have children, I would read it to them. I will read it to me personally.
You can come read it to my daughter.
I would read them to her. I will read them to my nieces and nephews. I think that they are so, when something is meaningful to you as you're growing up, that becomes a piece of you, and that's okay. That doesn't have to have something that doesn't have to be something that stays attached to the creator forever. It's the same way we've talked in the past about, for instance, Woody Allen movies or any given person that you are not a fan of and you think is problematic, but they created something that you liked. You are not delivering a testament on how you feel about that person by enjoying the work that they made. That work now exists in the public sphere. That is no statement on you. That's okay. I just want to say that because I know so many people feel away, and it's okay. You can read Harry Potter and you don't need to hide that cover when you're out there. But if you want to, you can do that too, because I get it.
You can also hide it. Yeah. Like, yeah. I mean, I get that too.
It's tragic. I mean, listen, you know what? As we're recording, like, you can see my display of Harry Potter books. They have a special pot in my shelf, and then I have like the Hunger Games right next to it. Like, I will never take those down. And anytime I see the Harry Potter books in someone's home, I know that's like a fellow millennial who was going to those midnight releases like me. And like, we still have a little bit of community in that. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's take another little break. We'll be right back. And we're back. Now, in 2025 year, this moment, this day, J.K. Rowling still writes, she still tweets, she still makes headlines. Her books still sell too, as Sarah said. She often tweets, as recently as today, that she does not care about her haters because she still gets royalties. Incredible. She's so blatantly fucking ugly. It's incredible. This past April, when the UK Supreme Court ruled that transgender women cannot legally be recognized as women, I am so sorry to say, she gloated on Twitter. She posted a photo of herself smoking a cigarette, holding a glass of wine. That's how fucking bad it is, guys. But hey, her legacy is fractured for younger fans, especially LGBTQ plus readers. She is no longer seen as a beloved author, but as a symbol of betrayal. The books we all once turned to for comfort now feel complicated. It's true. And as we said, some have learned to separate the art from the art from the artist. Others have let the books go entirely. That's fine, whatever suits you. But what's really interesting to me is that she still frames herself as the victim in all. She casts criticism as censorship and herself as this free speech martyr. It's so ludicrous. But it's also a common move with public figures who refuse to be accountable. They recast backlash as bullying and criticism as oppression. Again, we've talked about this relentlessly. But to me, the thing that's probably the most tragic is this woman who wrote about love and resistance and the power of being different, even if it isn't what I thought it was when I was younger. I think for so many of us, it still was this important symbol of all of that. Now, way more about exclusion, which is really, really sad. And what's really interesting is, I'm sure many of you heard, there's a whole new HBO series that's currently in the works. She is an executive producer. So much of the fan has spurned her, has turned our backs on her. Evidently, Hollywood never will. No. Sister, do you think she's ever going to really get it? Does it even matter? Because she's definitely going to keep padding her bottom line, right?
She's too big to fail. And the other thing that I think people don't necessarily understand if you don't live in the UK is that her views, and I'm not defending them in any way, I think that they are bigoted and awful. They're mainstream in the UK. It has a nickname in the gender studies community as TERF Island, which stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist. These are not unusual views, which is, I think, one of the reasons she's so vocal about them, because the people, many of the people she meets would espouse those views. And so in the UK, it's not quite as, I mean, I'm not trying to say everyone feels this way in the UK. I mean, I did my master's in gender studies at the Gender Institute at the London School of Economics, where we had non-binary professors and it wasn't run by bigots, but there are lots of feminist circles in the United Kingdom that are trans exclusionary and are gender critical. So she would have those people supporting her and making her feel more empowered. So that's the thing I think people need to realize, and why I don't know she'll ever have an epiphany, because the view's pretty mainstream where she lives. No, I don't think she's ever going to face any real consequences because she's too big to fail, right? Hollywood has invested too much in Harry Potter. Warner Brothers, who made the movies and are making the TV show, like, they need this IP to work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, just Hollywood needs her. I mean, Universal Studios needs this IP to work because they invested so much in these parks, right? Capitalism at the end of the day dictates so much of our culture and so much of what stays culturally relevant. And when you put in this much money and invest this much into something, you can't just let it die. You have to keep bringing it back. And yes, it's going to keep lining J.K. Rowling's pockets, which she seems to enjoy because she does talk about enjoying her royalties. But she was already so rich that it almost didn't matter. Like, she's at the point of being so rich that, like, more money doesn't really change her quality of life or her standard of living in any way. So just enjoy these things if you want to enjoy them. If you want to watch the show, that's totally fine. I get it. I hope that it is more inclusive.
That's their goal. So they've been hiring actors of color to fill in the key cast, supposedly.
Which is great. And I also hope it's more inclusive of different personality types. This is weird, but one thing I didn't like was how if you weren't in Gryffindor, you didn't really matter, right? Like, if you weren't one of those kids, if you didn't have that personality.
Let it out, Sarah. I didn't know all of these Harry Potter feelings.
I took the quiz. And I'm a Hufflepuff. And the Hufflepuffs have no dignity. They're afforded no dignity. And I don't like that. I don't like how everybody, like, they're a joke. Ravenclaw's like, oh, you're nerds. And then Slytherin are really vilified. And, like, they're children. They're children.
Oh, God, this is so funny. Okay, first of all, I'm shocked you're not a Ravenclaw. I thought you would have been a certain Ravenclaw, or at least
I'm a Hufflepuff.
In what world are you a Hufflepuff?
I took multiple quizzes. I am always a Hufflepuff. I'm never anything else. I'm a Hufflepuff. That is who I am. I think it's because it's like, do you care more about feelings than anything else? And I guess I care about feelings and being nurturing.
If it helps, free quiz tells me I'm a Slytherin, which I have come to be very proud of. Because as we know, Gryffindors and Slytherins, there's a very fine line between them.
Yes.
So, what
I like Slytherins. I think Gryffindors are kind of obnoxious.
I think so too. Gryffindors got way too good a rep. Yeah, exactly. There you go. And I think Hufflepuffs are lovely and fun. And very
and let someone else win the House Cup.
Amen to that.
Someone else win that. That was another thing I didn't like about this story, is how it's like, oh, they're always going to win the House Cup, right? Because, J.K. Rowling almost had main character syndrome for her main characters, right? Like, it was just... I was like, yes, we get it. They're the stars. So they just are always not just centered in their own stories, but in everyone else's. Like, everybody else just hero worships them. I just found it very strange. Anyway.
That's so funny.
So I'm hoping the series gives the other houses their time to shine.
God bless her. Wow, I loved this little mini diatribe. God, I mean, truly we could just end there, but we do have our final segment. Hindsight is 2025. Now, really, we could probably do without this, because I think we're going to say the exact same things. But in case you're a new listener, this is the segment where we choose the one moment that we might have handled differently if we were the subject of this story.
I shouldn't have done that.
Sarah, do you have one key moment? I mean, she put her foot in it a long time ago.
Okay, maybe this is just for people in general who end up becoming super famous. Okay. You don't have to have opinions about everything. And if you do, you don't have to share them, right? If you're not an expert on something,
gorgeous,
you don't need to share your opinion. And that is just what I'm going to say for people. And I understand some people see that it as a form of protest. So I guess she feels she's protesting something she thinks is an injustice.
Yeah.
But I just think that, honestly, the woman has enough time and enough money that if she was really interested in this, she could just go do a master's in gender studies and then learn about it before giving people an opinion. Because people treat her word like gospel. So when you have a platform like that, I actually think it is unwise to speak out about something you're not an expert on, because you're just going to really move the needle so much. So, I mean, that is one thing I would say. Just celebrities in general, you don't have to have an opinion on everything. If you're not well versed in something, You don't have to share your opinion. I like it when celebrities just don't share their opinions. People ask them about something and they're like, you know what? Smarter people than me have said stuff about that. Go look them up. I really appreciate that.
I completely agree.
So what about you?
I was going to say get a good publicist, but clearly it doesn't matter because these publicists probably get fired or they quit. But because you said the key thing, the one thing that I will add is, God damn it, Joanne, if Dumbledore was going to be gay, make him gay on the page. I was so pissed off when I discovered this way back when, and I wanted more so badly. I remember me and some friends and my sister, like, we tore through some of them trying to find this alleged subtext. None of it was there. I'm still mad about that, Joanne. If you're going to say it, put it in the page. And there you go.
You can't get points later for having diverse characters that you didn't write as diverse.
No,
I'm sorry.
Especially
you
not
can't.
now.
No, not now. And that really upset me because I felt like by the end, because the books came out over a long period of time, by the end, the tide had turned and it probably wasn't as risky to have a gay character. Also, she was so famous. So you can't get points for the chance you didn't take. I'm sorry. You can't, I'm sorry. You can't retcon this. That's my, anyway, it very much upsets me.
Thank you so much. I love everything we've shared today. Now, let me close with the words of the great, the gorgeous Pedro Pascal, who recently dubbed J.K. Rowling a heinous loser. I think nothing needs to be said more than that. Now, thank you to all our listeners. You can listen to more of the Reheat for free on the Seeker app, and you can find the show on the Frequency Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to hear more from me, you can find me at _Sadaf. Sarah, where can our listeners find you and tell you if you really are a Hufflepuff or not?
I'm definitely a Hufflepuff. You can find me on Blue Sky. You can also find me on Instagram at Sahagian Sarah. And if you liked this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe so other listeners can find us too. And if you would like us to keep growing, as I hope you do, we would love for you to support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thereheat, where we've got some goods in store for you. Thanks for listening.